Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for joining again. How's it going? So, being this 3 p.m. BST, and I like to start on time. Just a quick sanity check. Just want to make sure the audio is all working correctly. Looks like it's all working fine from here. Anyone want to confirm that? Everything okay? Cool. Alhamdulillah. All right. Jazakallah khairan. So cool. All right, let's do a very, very, very quick recap of what we did yesterday. Let me just go straight through to the slides. So we started up our basics. Basically, we covered the fact that your biggest obstacle, your biggest struggle is going to be your own nafs. So you basically need to make the effort to get out there, to be active, to constantly rethink about why you're engaged in the dawah, why you're studying the material, what you intend to do with it. By the way, nobody reminded me about the story of the five monkeys, so that's a missed opportunity now. We went through the akhlaq of da'i, and the takeaway message there was basically it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. If your nature, if your mannerisms, if your methodology of dealing with people is such that you are or that they're repulsed by you, that they don't want to approach you, that they don't feel that they can approach you, that you humiliate them, it costs them their dignity to deal with you. They're not going to take anything from you. So it doesn't matter what you have. If you have bad um, relationships with people, your dawah efforts are going to stall straight away. And then we covered the question of what is the great sin. There was a hidden purpose behind this, which was to be ready to challenge your own assumptions of what you think you might know. But the other takeaway message from this slide was to be aware that if you speak without knowledge, you could inadvertently make a situation worse, because if you speak without knowledge and present yourself as an ambassador of Islam, as someone who is knowledgeable, as someone who can speak with authority on certain matters, you may end up convincing someone, solidifying their kufr because of some mistakes that you've made, which they may take as an evidence that you, and by extension Islam, doesn't have any truth to offer. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khairan for joining in. So then we also went on, we discussed at great length drama versus reality, that your own personal perceptions of something may not necessarily correlate with the reality. And it doesn't matter how you came to your perception. We're not judging, did you jump to a conclusion, whatever have you, because even when you tried your utmost best to gather all of the information available to you, it is still possible for you to draw the wrong conclusion that is contrary to what the reality is. So the point here being just to keep an open mind, at least, as to that there could be another possibility and another solution somewhere. And we went through multiple examples of the gentleness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At the end of the day, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the example sent to us. He is our teacher. He is our guide. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam, demonstrated, and lived a life full of different situations that we can take multiple examples from on how we should interact and behave with people. That these are lessons that we need to incorporate within ourselves. So for the most part, those were all basically characteristics of a da'i, which was yesterday's session. So today we're going to cover a little bit about the principles and methodology, inshallah. So at the end of the day, we're talking about dawah. So what is dawah? What is the definition of dawah? When we understand the term dawah, what is it? Is it so we can see here there are two pictures here, both of Hamza Georges on the left and Lars Goulet on the right, taken in Norway on the same day. I was the photographer. I was the one that took these pictures. So these pictures are taken in the same city on the same day, not at the same event. They were at two different events. So the one on the right was earlier on in the day, and the one on the left was a debate that was held in the evening. But you can clearly see that there is two different uh, tones, for want of a better word, in this picture. There's two different circumstances. There's two different things going on. That on one side, on the left side, you have a debate, and on the right side is very clearly a discussion. You can see Hamza there, very relaxed. He's got his hands in his pockets, his arms down by his side. You've got Lars as well. Again, his arms are down. By the way, just we'll cover this in a much future session, but just in case I forget to mention it then, this is a technique called basically mirroring, where the person who you're speaking to will basically mirror the same kind of a stance that you present, and also the stance that you present can also subconsciously dictate or indicate the nature of your engagement with that person. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, if you're approaching someone and you're speaking to them with your arms crossed across your chest, that's a very hostile, confrontational one. It's presenting a natural barrier there, and subconsciously it infers that there's some kind of a barrier that you need to get through. The person who's got their arms crossed has the barrier that they're not going to be receptive to the other person. So an easy way to resolve that, actually, without even saying anything, is if you cross your arms and just keep it there for a few seconds, until it's acknowledged and recognized. And then if you open up your arms and put your hands in your pockets, as we see Hamza here, the other person, usually they'll mirror your response. And just on a subconscious level, just by being open physically, they're also open mentally. I know it's weird, but it works. Anyway, so we have here two different styles or two different types of engagement, which is a debate and which is a discussion. And the question is, what is Dawah? Is it a debate or is it a discussion? What is the definition of Dawah? So for the sake of time, because I'm not sure how much we'll get through today, I want to obviously finish this whole module by today. Let's just say, okay, Dawah as a definition, or actually, what is the definition of Dawah? Does anyone want to hazard a guess? Does anyone want to offer an answer as to what the definition of Dawah actually is? Okay. Fine. So the definition of Dawah, the word itself, yep. Close. That's inferred. No. You guys you started off correct, but then you inferred something extra on top. So Dawah itself is an invitation. Okay. The linguistics is an invitation. Obviously, yes, in this context, it's an invitation to Islam, to accept Islam. Yes, Jazakallah khair, and you're both correct. And the key word here is that it's an invitation. It's an invitation. And the fact that it's an invitation in and of itself suggests a few things. So can you imagine, for example, that, let me give you an example. Let's just say if I said, okay, Brother Fulan, Ramadan's coming up soon, right? Listen, Brother Fulan, I know you're struggling for money, and I know your missus, she's not a very good cook at all. I've tasted her cooking; it's not good. So I tell you what, because we have loads of food at every iftar all the time, why don't you come over one evening and whatever we've got left, you can take that, you can pack that up, and take that home for your family. Is that an invitation? Right? So that's definitely an invitation, okay? Because the individual is being invited over to receive food and things like that. But now the question is that an invitation that the individual is likely to accept? And I would argue that it's not, because it's humiliating. The manner in which that invitation was made is not one that's conducive for it to be accepted. By humiliating the person, they're not going to accept that, even though they may be in need. But again, you've attacked a person's dignity, you've attacked a person's character, you've attacked their humanity. There was no need for that. The same invitation could have been extended in multiple different ways, which would have been far more pleasing and acceptable. So the thing to bear in mind is, with the invitation, is obviously the invitation needs to be made out in some way that the person is going to find it easy to accept and acceptable. So, how does this relate to the dawah? Well, sometimes we see, du'at, when they're trying to call people to Islam, they do so by insulting the other person's religion, or what their belief system is. Oh, what you think, this is mad, this is stupid, how can you believe in this nonsense, and blah 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 blah, whatever have you. And the fact of the matter is that if you attack something that is close and personal to a person, doesn't matter how what the reasons were, what the foundation is for them believing in it, the fact that it's theirs, it actually causes them to hold on to it stronger. And we'll come to some subtle reasons as to why on the next slide. But basically, part of your methodology should not be to attack or to ridicule someone or to make them feel down, because that's not an invitation. That's just basically your ego coming into play, and that's actually the work of shaitan, because at the end of the day, you're driving that person away. And maybe this person might have an excuse for you if they never accept Islam. They might say, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, how could they accept the religion of from someone who was so arrogant in spreading the message? What good is there in Islam when you have the supposed, and I say supposed from their perspective, obviously, we believe him to be the best of all creation, the best of humanity. But what goodness is there from their perspective in this if the Muslims are not embodying this, exemplifying this? It means that the teachings are worthless. Do you see what I mean? So basically, in your mannerism yourself, you're contradicting the very notion and the very essence of dawah. And unfortunately, this is, I don't want to say this is something new. It might have been going on for a long time, a lot of time, but unfortunately with social media, we see a lot of it now. I'm seeing a lot of it now, and I find it really, really distressing, actually, because it seems that a lot of people are following this methodology because of sensationalism for social media and whatever have you. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So again, my advice is to, again, reflect. Why are you giving dawah in the first place? Because you sincerely want to call that person to Islam. So you have to go back and think, the manner in which I'm engaging with this person, is it conducive to the end goal that I want? And humiliating them is not. Okay. So how about a different invitation? So if we say, listen, Fulan, I heard you've been saying stuff, so you better meet me outside, out the back, and we're gonna sort some things out. Again, that's an invitation, right? It's an invitation, but is it an invitation that this individual is going to want to accept, is likely to accept? And again, you would argue, or I would argue at least, that no, it's not, because that kind of an invitation made under threat, is only going to be accepted under duress, is only going to be accepted in the state where the person has no other choice, out of fear of some other something else going to happen. Do you see? So again, it's not an invitation that they want to accept. And how does this translate into dawah? Because we see du'at as well. They say, oh, you need to accept Islam, you need to follow this, otherwise you're going to burn in hell, and blah 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 blah. And then they bring the fire and the brimstone and all of this. And whilst, yes, from our perspective that's all true, the manner in which that's being conveyed and that's being explained is not a manner in which that the person will A, readily understand, and B, is ready to accept there and then. We're going to come to that point as well. So the point being that when we're in the process, in the act of giving da'wah to someone, we really need to be thinking that, okay, fine, I'm in, invitation mode, and I want to be in the mode where the person wants to accept this invitation. So now, having said all of that, now when we have a look at these two situations that's being presented as a debate and as a discussion, and we know the difference between the two, right? Which one do you think is dawah? Is it possible for both of them to be dawah, or is one leaned towards more than the other? What do you guys think? So, so the difference. Well, let's rather than say one is on the other, I would say obviously, Dawah leans itself more towards discussion. But let's have a look. Or actually, let me say this. I'm going to go back the other way. I would say that debating is, generally speaking, not Dawah. Okay? Debating is not Dawah. When you enter into a debate with an individual, you are not giving Dawah to that individual anymore. Okay? There is a difference. There is a clear and stark difference between a debate and a discussion. So let's show some of those here. Okay? So essentially, debate's formal, argumentative. You're more talking at the person, yada yada yada. You go into a debate with the mindset that you are going to defeat the other person, and don't forget, the other person is coming into the debate with the same mindset that they are coming in to defeat you. They're not coming in to seek what's the truth. I have yet to see, and it probably does exist. But I have yet to witness any debate where one person comes in with one view, and during the debate they actually agree with the other side and said, you know what? Yes, I actually agree with you, and I switched my position, whatever have you. I've never seen that. Even if the other person is wrong, their role and their objective is to argue their side as best as they can. Okay, whereas a discussion is a completely different setting. It's a completely different environment. It's more one-to-one. It's more personal. It's more get to know you. It's more listening to you. It's more, rather than mine is better than yours. It's more, this is better for you. It's trying to connect on common principles and grow from there, which is essentially the methodology of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, just to quickly caveat, does that mean that I'm saying that what Hamza is doing on stage and what other du'at have done on stage, having debates and whatever have you, is not Dawah, is not counter to Dawah? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I make an exception for those people, and I say I make an exception. There's an exception for those individuals purely because they're on stage. Most of the time, 99% of the time, when we're giving dawah to someone, we're not doing it on stage. We're not doing it in front of an audience. We are talking to someone one-to-one. And it's very, very important that when we're having that one-to-one conversation with our friend, with our family member, with our colleague, even with someone on the street or whatever have you, whoever you're having that discussion with, that you're having a discussion. It's an open, frank, honest, casual discussion. You're trying to reach that person's heart. Okay, like I say, it's not about the mind games. The conquering the mind is ridiculously easy. We're going to go through that. But the heart, that's the hardest one. And it's, at the end of the day, it's the hearts that turn. We're not the ones on stage. Now you see what, for example, Hamza is doing on stage. Hamza's objective on stage is not to give dawah to Lars Goulet, but rather to present the ideas and the principles of Islam, or whatever the topic of the debate is, to a wider audience versus what the perspective is of the other person that they're going to present, and leave it to the audience to draw their own conclusion from the arguments and the counter arguments being made. So Hamza is giving dawah, but not to Lars Goulet, not to his interlocutor. He is giving dawah in a unilateral way. So there's no back and forth with the audience. He's giving dawah in a unilateral way to an audience. So that's why, in some ways, the techniques that you have to employ in a debate, that's fine for a debate. But it's not fine for a discussion, which is where most of our time is spent. So the point here is that when we're watching debates and things like that happening and taking place on social media or whatever have you, it's absolutely fine to take the lessons from those debates, take the point that the person is making, take the understanding, what is the underlying point. But don't necessarily present it in the same way as the debate. Don't be aggressive like the debaters are, but rather you want to present the same point, reworded in a manner that suits you, in a much more relaxed atmosphere when you're having the discussion. And here's the other thing. You'll see from the picture as well, where Hamza is speaking, Lars Goulet was actually busy writing something down. He's not actively, attentively listening. Oh, he might be, but for the most part, debaters don't usually actively, attentively listen, but rather what they're doing is they're not listening to the point from a perspective of trying to understand. What they're doing is they're listening to a point from the perspective of trying to find a chink in the armor that they can counter. Oh, you said this, but what about that? You then said this, but we can counter with that, and blah 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 blah. They're literally just looking for some keywords or whatever have you that they can go on the attack with. And basically make a mountain out of that, rather than coming to a common understanding. They're trying to destroy the other person's point rather than come to a common understanding and a common agreement, which is a difference in discussion. Like you'll see, there was a discussion Hamza had with some other philosopher a few days ago, where it's trying to come to a common understanding, which is a completely different style of rhetoric. Again, when you're having that discussion with someone, you want to make sure that you're attentively listening to them, and this is the point. Listen to them. Listen to what they say. We all have our internal clock, our internal radio that's just playing in the background, blah blah blah, he's saying this, I've heard this a million times before, blah 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 blah, and we don't analyze what they're saying. We're just looking at the words, right? So many times I've witnessed Dawah doing this, and and we really need to become better at this, is if you listen to the person with the intent of trying to understand that person actually will give you the clues as to the key to their heart. You have to look at, don't look at the specific words of what they're saying, because even the specific words might be a misdirection. Try to understand what is going on in the background that's generating these words in the first place. Try and connect with them as a person. What's the most important thing to them? And oftentimes you'll find that the indirect approach will result in more success for you, rather than directly, he said this, so I counter with that, and he said this, and so I'm going to counter with that. Don't treat them like some kind of a biological robot. They're not biological robots. They're people with background and feelings and things like that that we need to you need to understand and engage with, and understand what it is, what are they saying between the words, so to speak. Does that make sense? And again, so when you're having that discussion with someone, again, another good technique to be aware of, or a principle to be aware of, is when you're having that discussion with someone, is who's the one who's doing the most talking? Are you talking most? Are you talking over them? Are you talking at them? Or are you talking to them? Are you talking with them? Often, in conversations, I prefer to let the other side do most of the talking, and I'll just interject where needed, just to gently guide them to where I want them to get to. Actually, for the most part, people can reach the truth themselves. They just need a little bit of guidance, rather than for you to be talking at them. But it needs to be a conversation. You need to be having a one-to-one with them, rather than just having a monologue. Okay, where you're just talking over them and ignoring everything that they have to say. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of points there. I'm sure you guys can recognize the difference. It's just be careful, because this is an easy point where shaitan can come in and turn what started off as a simple, honest discussion into basically a debate and potentially a hostile situation. And it does happen. Sometimes it's impossible to avoid it, particularly if the other side want to do it. I've had instances where I've had like Jehovah's Witnesses come over, and I love it, because they're trying to give dawah to you, and I'll sit and I'll listen, and have a cup of tea, this, that, and the other, and then I'll just go in for the jugular question, which we'll come to inshallah in a much later session. I prefer to just go straight to cut off the underlying root, and as soon as they realize that, then the subject changes. Oh, we've got to go. We've spent enough. The answers are just then. They fail to be forthcoming. And then I've actually had one instance where they got a little bit aggressive about it, but khalas, So just remember, when you're speaking to someone, you are the representative of Islam. How is your action, your attitude going to bring someone closer? You may be aware there's a famous statement or oration attributed to Imam Shafi'i, where he mentioned that when he debates with someone, he would hope that the truth would come from his opponent. Now, does that mean that he hopes he's wrong all the time? No. What it meant was that, or what he meant by that was that he had the humility, and this is the case of people with knowledge, that people with knowledge who are seeking knowledge for knowledge's sake, and obviously for Allah's sake, etc., that they'll recognize where they're wrong, where there was a flaw in their understanding. And if the opponent, if the person he was debating was right, then he would happily adopt the other person's perspective, because at the end of the day he wants to be on the side of the truth. And if he concludes that actually yes, the other person is correct or more correct than him, he was happy to change his mind. He's not fixed to a singular position. But if the opponent was wrong, it would be harder for them to accept the truth, and that situation would only encourage animosity, which is why he used to say that he hoped that the opponent was right, because that way, there's only two outcomes, three potential outcomes. Either the opponent is right and Imam Shafi'i will gracefully accept that position, or Imam Shafi'i was right and the other person would gracefully accept that position, which is rare and unlikely to happen. Or Imam Shafi'i was right and the other person is going to get aggressive about it and and cause animosity, which is the situation that he wanted to avoid. But yeah, this is something that is commonplace now, that when we have a discussion and debate with someone. Actually, I was watching a couple of weeks ago, there's a YouTube channel, I'm not going to mention it, where the Du'at, it's actually named after the situation of going into a lion's cage, right, where you're literally, and nobody would want. I mean, just think about the picture that you're trying to paint with that kind of language, that going into the lion's cage, where you don't want to willingly go in there. You're going to go in there. You're going to get attacked. The lions in this case being the Muslims, and it's like that doesn't it's being done from the in the name of da'wah, but to me it doesn't strike me as the conducive method of inviting people to accept. It just sounds to me like some coating or some decoration over, we just want to basically exercise our ego and just show how we are superior, and basically batter anyone who wants to come in with some kind of a objection or contention. We're just going to batter them, and it's easy to do once you know how to do it. It's easy to do, but it's basically well, I'm not going to mention any names, but it's easy to do. But when I was watching that, like the entire engagement, I felt very, very uncomfortable watching it, because it's not set up in a way that you're inviting someone to to accept Islam. You're just basically inviting them to get beat down on a point, basically, and just be humiliated and escorted away. I don't know if you guys maybe feel the same way. Well, actually, no. Let's not be specific and name names, but yeah, that I just the point being, again, it comes backwards back to just thinking about, look, why are we doing this in the first place? Is it for sensationalism? Is it for views? Is it for likes? Is it so people get to know who we are? Is it for popularity, whatever have you? Or is it because the person that we're talking to, we actually really do care about that individual? We fear the fact that on the day of judgment that person might have an excuse against us, and at the end of the day we want to follow in the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we also want to obviously be able to pass our accounting and achieve Jannah, because we have to think, is the manner in which I'm doing this conducive to that or not? And also something I didn't cover yesterday, there's a very, very important hadith, is the hadith of the first three people to enter the fire, which is the first three people to enter the fire will be a great warrior, a great scholar, and a very, very charitable individual. So there would be a warrior there, and people say, mashallah, that guy was great and fighting for Islam and yada yada yada. You'd have a scholar there again, spreading knowledge and whatnot, and someone who was giving a lot of charity. But when they reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, expecting a reward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would just tell them that, no, you did what you did because you wanted the glory and the recognition of the people. You wanted the glory and the recognition of the people, and you had that. You had that. People said how brilliant of a warrior you were, what a great scholar you were, how charitable you were, yada yada. You had that from the people. from me, you get nothing. And they enter the fire. They're the first people to enter the fire. So that's something that I would advise everyone to just constantly remind yourself of. Look, why are we doing something in the first place? And also on that topic, one of my teachers said to me as well, and this has always stuck with me, that there are two types of people, in this perspective. There are those that will benefit Islam, and there are those that will benefit from Islam. Or if you want to put it another way, there are those that will profit Islam, and there are those that will profit from Islam. So again, be careful, about engaging in something just because you want to profit in the sense of money, likes, popularity, fame, whatever have you. At the end of the day, if it's not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you're just going to be bankrupted on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and at that point, it's going to be too late. Okay, so I hope that point is clear. I'm just going to keep drumming this point on, because like I said yesterday, this is easily 80-90% of the effectiveness of your dawah. If you're not doing it for the sake of Allah, if you don't have that in the background of that I really want to reach out to this person, there's going to be no effectiveness there. Okay, so choosing paradise or hellfire. Okay, so I want you guys to think about this seriously, in that here's the question there, right? When the torment of the hellfire is brought forth on the day of judgment, how many individuals would choose to enter it willingly? Now, arguably, nobody, right? Nobody would choose to enter it willingly. And I just want to paint the picture as well. Exactly when we're talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah, obviously we have the stress of Yawm al-Qiyamah already, the day of judgment already. But imagine the fire, and I want you to imagine this. Like, now, I used to imagine the fire just like as a sea of fire, but rather, actually, I heard Sheikh Asim Khan. He gave a really, really good lecture on this. That rather the way to imagine the fire actually is more closer to like a bucking beast, like an animal that is literally raging, and this animal is raging to the point where it's got 70,000 hooks all over its body. So we know obviously that it'll be dragged from 70,000 hooks with 70,000 angels on each hook. And I used to think that it was kind of like a lake, like it was a heavy thing being dragged. We said no, it's more akin of a wild, dangerous, aggressive beast that's got like a bridle on it, like the horse's bridle with the hooks and everything on it. 70,000 hooks, and there's 70,000 angels just trying to hold it under control, otherwise it'll just go and destroy everything. This is the fire that is going to be presented to creation, that this is could be the ultimate abode for people. And the point is, when that's presented, who's going to choose to enter that willingly? Obviously nobody. Even when you have idiots like for example, Stephen Fry, who likes to claim, oh well, I will choose hellfire because I don't like the idea of God and blah 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 blah. They can say it now. They'll say it now. They won't be saying it then. I mean, even when they say it now, it's very easy to refute them. You just ask them, just light a match under your hand. They're not going to do it. So you won't even light a match under your hand, but you claim you want to go into the greatest fire of all? No chance. Willingly? No chance. Anyway, point is, they won't enter it willingly, right? So you got to think, if they won't enter that willingly on that day, why are they so willing to rush for it now? And the reason they're so willing to rush for it now comes down to one of two reasons. Either they don't believe it exists, right? So they don't believe. So here's something that we've got to accept as an axiom. People will always act in their own self-interest. Okay, people always want to be right. People will always act in their own self-interest. So nobody's going to act deliberately in a way that's going to lead them to the hellfire, unless they believe that either it doesn't exist, or that somehow they're immune from it, somehow they are safe from it. So, for example, atheists and whatnot will believe that that the fire doesn't exist, and then you have, for example, Christians that believe in the Day of Judgment or whatever have you, but rather that they have automatic salvation from it. So it doesn't matter what they do, but they're going to basically be protected from it. And I've asked a number of Christians this, because a few people have actually mentioned to me that actually that's not the Christian belief. But then when I've asked for clarification, like, okay, fine, what is it that a Christian can do that will lead them to the hellfire? There's no answer, because from their creed, from their theology, like as soon as you accept Jesus as Lord, Savior, you're basically saved. There is, you go one way or the other way. So once you're saved, it doesn't matter what you do. Then you basically have license to do whatever you want, from their theology, which strikes me as something in and of itself, something a little bit inauthentic, because how can the truth from a merciful creator be such that you will get a free pass to be as ruthless and as violent as you want, so long as you accept something that could never be proven. Anyway, so Surah Al-Qiyamah in the Quran confirms that Mushrikun have no belief in the final day, because they ask, when is the final day? So Dawah here is about clarifying the misconception about the reality and basically explaining that, okay, look, the punishment is real, right? Okay, and I don't like the Dawah where we focus on the fire and the brimstone. Okay, so you need to focus on Jannah as well, but the point here is to recognize what's driving people to their current actions. So and you need to try and explain to them that, look, this is a very real situation, and there's a very real possibility of anyone entering into that punishment, and potentially never even coming out of that punishment. And the importance of that as well is, it's like, when people say, oh well, listen, keep your Dawah in, keep your Islam in the house and whatever have you, it's got no place outside. Well, actually it does, because if you consider a person's mindset, right, as to with regards to ultimate accountability, that mindset drives all of their behavior. Now, for example, someone who doesn't believe in ultimate accountability, who thinks that whatever they do they can get away with it, they might cheat at work, they might steal, they might drive in a manner that somebody could get hurt or killed, or whatever have you. We have multiple cases where people will go out drinking, and they'll become violent. They can jump behind a car and they can kill someone or whatever have you. Whereas if you have if you have someone whose mindset, whose outlook on life is that, look, everything is going to be accounted for, that person is far less likely to steal, because he knows that even though a person's not watching him, at the end of it, his deeds are being recorded and his creator can see. He's going to be far less likely to engage in some kind of an action where it destroys another person's life, because at the end of the day, on the day of judgment, where he could be held accountable for multiple lives, he's going to be he's going to suffer for that. It's relatively easy to end a life in this world, but for example, you take dictators and people like that who have killed millions and millions, the creators of bombs and whatever have you. They're just making a quick buck. They made a bomb. But for every single person unjustly killed on Yom Kippur, they're going to have to answer for that. The people are going to ask, why were we killed? We were killed. We don't even know who the person who killed us or why we were killed or whatever have you. There's going to be justice there. And so your outlook, your worldview, your perspective does indeed drive pretty much everything that you do. Also, the thing to think about is that people who reject Islam, and I'm using air quotes specifically, don't necessarily know what it is that they're rejecting. So let's use the story of Ikramah, for example. So Ikramah was someone who was very much against Islam. He used to fight the Muslims, son of Abu Jahl. And when the Muslim conquest of Makkah took place, he was in fear because of being a war criminal, someone who had attacked and killed Muslims, etc. His fear was such that he actually fled and tried to board a boat to escape. His wife went and fetched him and brought him back to Rasulullah to ask for forgiveness. Okay, and when he approached Rasulullah to ask for forgiveness, at this point, the Muslims had conquered Makkah, and Rasulullah, again, his reaction was he could have just killed everyone, but no, he offered them amnesty, pardon, forgiveness, or whatever have you. Turn over a clean slate, because at the end of the day, whatever's happened in the past, so long as they repent, turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's ultimately what his goal is. Anyway, the point is, he asked, what is it that you're calling to? And Rasulullah basically explained the message of Islam to him, that we just just worship Allah alone, don't worship the idols, etc., etc., etc. And at that point he said, actually, I've got no problem with that. He said, I didn't know that was it. I've literally just got no problem with that. So fine. So, and he was very happy to accept Islam. Because once he actually understood what Islam was, he was in agreement with it. The whole time he was fighting Islam, he was fighting kind of like a boogeyman of what he thought Islam was. Again, he had his own drama going on of what he thought it was. Oh, it's just something brand new that's set to destroy our ways, destroy our culture, whatever have you, whatever. He never had. I don't want to say he never had the opportunity. He would have had the opportunity, but he never took the time to actually think about it properly, and it was never, conveyed to him properly. Not necessarily the fault of anyone else. He probably wasn't receptive at this point. He was receptive because he was receptive for his life. But the point being that once he actually got it and understood it, he embraced it. He accepted it. There was actually no problem there. So his issue wasn't with what Islam was teaching. His issue was actually just a drama that he's conjured in his own mind. So just be aware of that as well. That actually happens to a lot of people, that they actually don't know what it is that they're rejecting. So yeah, we have all of that. So yeah, just be aware of that. Basically, the people who are adopting their positions are doing so because of a particular worldview that they hold, right? Okay, so let's talk about this worldview a little bit more. So the worldview is your perception, right? So what do we have here? You can see there's a cup there on the right. What do we see? Do we see a cup of water? But is it half full? Is it half empty? And from a perspective, they're both true. What's the time now? Okay, right. The optimist will say that the cup is half full because they're hopeful that it could have been filled up, whereas the pessimist says it's half empty because from their perspective the cup should have been full in the first place. You have multiple different perspectives. And the point that I want to get at here is that depending on your state of mind, your background, and multiple different factors, you can look at the exact same thing yet come to a completely different conclusion. Okay, not everybody shares the exact same worldview. And again, this comes back to the whole drama thing. Your drama is, a lot of it is predicated on your worldview, and it's, people don't necessarily share the same worldview. You'll see there's a joke there at the bottom with the Muslim worldview, that is it halal? And again, that joke is based on a very, very real principle that Muslims care about the akhirah, care about what's going to happen, and therefore, for the most part, every single decision that they take is based or is taken on the basis of understanding how will this affect their akhirah. So their concern is this actually water or is this alcohol? What is it? I forgot what it's called. It's the one. There's one that's clear, but is it alcohol or is something? Is it basically permissible to drink? Is this something expensive or does it belong to someone else? The Muslim mindset is, look, am I allowed to do this? Have I been given authority to do this? Whereas from the other perspective, other people don't care. They'll drink and consume whatever they want because they don't know of the consequences of that. Does that make sense? So this is why, again, the Muslim worldview is it halal, but everyone else's worldview is just going to differ on a multitude of different things. Okay, so worldview is the perception, right? Now, here's a very important point. So everyone views the world with their own unique perspective, where it's almost like wearing glasses of a shade that's unique to them, which colors their perception on everything. So now imagine that there were two people, okay? Yourself and someone else. So two people, or wearing different colored glasses. One person's wearing blue glasses, one person's wearing red glasses. And now they look at the same thing, you know, a white flower, okay, a white rose. Are they going to agree on the color? Okay. Will they agree that the color? Well, obviously they're not going to agree. The person who's wearing blue glasses is going to see the rose as blue, and the person wearing the red glasses is going to see the rose as red. And it doesn't matter how much discussion they have between them or whatever have you, they're not going to come to an agreement as to the color of the rose, right? By the way, we're going to leave aside the mental principles, pseudo principles of what if one person's red is another person's green, or whatever have you. That's a completely different thing. You know, we'll leave that kind of a discussion aside, right? The point being that when they're having a look at it doesn't matter how much discussion that they have, they're not going to agree on this color, right? So it doesn't matter whether they raise their voice, whether they have a longer discussion. You know, in this kind of a situation, it doesn't matter if they have tea and coffee and whatever have you. There's clearly a fundamental difference here from a perspective point. And again, it doesn't matter if you keep repeating your point or even raising your voice. Sometimes this happens in Dawah as well. When someone doesn't get it, you just raise your voice. You know, it's we see that a lot. You know, with especially Brits do this as well with foreigners. You know, we get a lot of foreigners because obviously proximity to Europe and multiple languages. So I guess more so than America. But you know, when you're speaking to someone who doesn't understand and you just say it louder, it's not that they didn't hear you, bro. They just don't understand the words that you're saying. You know, so it doesn't matter how much you increase your volume, whatever have you. The person's not going to get it. The way that you get it. Or the way that you need to come to an agreement, the methodology for reaching an agreement in this case is to convince the other person to take off their glasses and try yours on. Just see the world from your perspective, and maybe they might prefer it. Okay, maybe if your position is actually better for them, they might adopt and keep your glasses, and that will cover everything with them. Okay, so what we're trying to get to is, rather than arguing about the color of the rose, don't argue about the color of the rose. Rather, say to them that, look, try my perspective. Try and look at things the way that I see the world here. Try these glasses on, and from that, they'll see everything the same way that you do. You don't need to talk about the rose because they'll just have got it straight away. You don't need to talk about anything else because they'll see everything. That's the real trick. Okay, how do you convince them to take off their glasses? And that's basically the real trick of Dawah. Okay, now beware of the curse of knowledge. Okay, very, very important thing. What is the curse of knowledge? The curse of knowledge is that the person who you're talking to does not necessarily have the same background information as you. Okay, you as a practicing Muslim, inshallah, you know, if you're out and giving dawah, you as a practicing Muslim have the background knowledge of what the Quran is, how it was compiled, you know, the relationship with the Quran and the Sunnah, who Rasulullah is, what the context is of revelation of certain perspectives, what the wisdom is behind certain rulings, whatever have you. You have, you know, and what the difference is, for example, between Islamic culture and, for example, Arab culture or whatever have you. You understand all of these things because of culture, because of background, because of education, whatever have you. The person that you're talking to doesn't necessarily have the same information, and they actually might have, you know, counter information. They don't know who Allah is. Okay, there's this idea that, oh, there are so many different gods and whatever have you. I mean, it's an idea I find ridiculous, right? There are like 50,000 different gods, whatever have you. Who's to say that they're all individuals? Why can't there be 50,000 names for the same one entity? Because, you know, they share a lot of same common attributes. You know, they have no concept of revelation. You know, from their perspective, you know, books just randomly appeared or people just randomly came preaching things. They have no concept of chains of isnad and whatever have you. They only know what they've been experienced to, what they've been exposed to, rather, sorry. So you have to be aware that when you're talking to someone, they don't know what you're necessarily talking. And this is also why you'll notice why I'm specifically trying to avoid Arabic terminology, and I'm speaking mostly in English because I'm speaking to an English speaking audience, and I assume, you know, I don't want to use Arabic terminology just in case that you know, I lose someone. again, be conscious of that when you speak to someone. If they don't understand the Arabic terminology, don't use the Arabic terminology. There's no one's putting a gun to your head and saying, oh, you have to say this word and blah 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 blah. I'll give you actually an example that came up relatively recently. Actually, no, we'll skip that because that might actually confuse you. So also just bear in mind that they may also have, so aside from not having the same knowledge as you, they may have knowledge. Their perspective may be actually something that is counter to the point that you want to demonstrate. They may have, a very bad picture painted for them already. That's their knowledge of what Muslims like. What's the media been drilling into their head for the last 20 years, that all Muslims are bad, Muslims are terrorists, and whatever have you, which is obviously complete nonsense, because you have a look at any kind of even government reports, wherever have you, will conclude that no, that's just not the case. So just bear in mind the curse of knowledge that what you have is not going to be the same as what them. Now, there is an exercise that I would have done this in a live setting, but I'm not sure it's going to work in this setting. So I actually found a couple of videos that or some things to exemplify this point. Okay, have a look at this. This is what a lot of people in the West think Muslims are like. Okay. Okay, I don't know if you guys caught it, but the guy shooting almost literally shot the one individual. Like, literally, there's a bullet hole in the wall, right? So there's a bullet. See the bullet in the wall, just like but that's it. Yeah, these Muslims are crazy people who live in the desert and just they got given a whole bunch of guns and they just randomly shoot. No idea of anything, right? That's what Muslims are like. Okay, now have a look at this one. This was actually quite amusing. Okay, Mabruk, congratulations to John and Zulkifl for getting married earlier this evening. Alhamdulillah, we conducted the nikah and issued the certificate. May Allah accept their marriage and keep them united throughout their lives. Ameen. Thank you for the wonderful food. Okay, and this was posted by a Dawah organization here in the UK on Twitter. So, yeah, what do you guys think is going to be the takeaway from that tweet with that photo? Right, I want you guys to pay attention to how this is worded. You have John and Zulkifl. Okay, John, a very common English white person's name. Okay, mentioned first, reading left to right, and he's there left on the photo. And Zulkifl, obviously not a common British English name, obviously the name of some kind of a foreigner, from an ethnic perspective. And you see there that the person on the right, the second person, is a foreigner. So it's very natural and easy to conclude that the person on the left is John and the person on the right is Zulkifl, and they've just gotten married, which now being tweeted by an Islamic organization, starts to raise some eyebrows, because this is not something that would be considered as a valid nikah. Nikah being a very particular type of relationship, a very particular type of contract, that this would not be counted as. So it raises some eyebrows, and you've got to think, okay, what were they trying to get at here? And this, of course, necessitated then, some responses where, they were told, like, delete it, retweet it, right, properly. Now, have a look at the response here. Please note, Sister Zulkifl is not in the photo, right, because we don't flaunt our women on social media. The Imam is on the right congratulating the groom. Like, have a look at, this is a Dawah organization, right? Have a look at the wording here. Like, oh, we don't flaunt our women. Like, was there any need to, when you that's literally a fan to some kind of flame, okay? Like, they could have got the exact same message out just by saying, just to clarify, this is John with the Imam in the photo. That's it. with the imam, with the person who conducted the nikah, with the person who conducted the marriage, and that is it. Obviously, then the imam's name. You say, okay, so that's not Zulkifl. So Zulkifl is someone else. Just say Sister Zulkifl is not in the photo, right? Sister, is not in the photo. There are so many ways that you could have just. I see that they could have just clarified the situation rather than making it out or explaining it in some way that is somehow derogative or infers some kind of an insult on the other party, so because we don't flaunt our women, right? Okay, obviously, there's something definitely being projected there, and I don't believe that that's healthy for the dawah. So this could have easily been reworded in a much better way, and also in response to the person suggesting that, look, okay, delete it, retweet it, make it better, walaikum salam, and granting more insight to masculine and feminine names. Again, doubling down, or tripling down actually on the issue. Masculine and feminine names. Zulkifl is in the Quran as a masculine name. It's the name of one of the prophets. So again, anyone familiar with that name and with Islamic, names in general would assume a male first and foremost rather than a sister. So no need to delete or amend. Just need to get out more. It's a case. Well, actually, I would argue the other way. So my point here is to just be aware of your audience. When you're speaking to your audience, you have to speak to your audience in the language that your audience understands, not in your own language. You have to be aware of what their current perceptions are. You can't guide someone anywhere. Like, if someone wanted to come to your house, right, and they phone you up and say, oh, listen, I'm trying to find my way to your house, what's the first thing you're going to ask them? You're going to ask them, where are you right now? You're not going to give just random generic directions. You could do, but that would be silly. But you're going to ask them, look, where are you right now? So you can give them accurate, personalized directions to find the straightest path there. You can't guide someone if you actively ignore where they are, where their state of mind is, what they currently think, what their perceptions are, what their beliefs are, what their background information is, what their experiences are. Maybe they've had bad experiences with Muslims and whatever have you. So again, something to bear in mind, that you always have to keep this in mind, not only of your own attitude now, which is what we covered yesterday, but now what is the other person thinking? Okay? Very, very important. So, for the sake of time, we could have just gone into an exercise of how they could have delivered the exact same message here in a better way, but I think we already covered that. Okay. So, now, here's a question. Here's a good one. Okay. Convey or convince. We have two separate ayat in the Quran. One says, and indeed, O Muhammad, you guide to a straight path. And the other one says, indeed, O Muhammad, sallallahu, you do not guide whom you like, but Allah guides whom He wills. So here's my question to you guys. Is there an apparent contradiction here? What do you guys reckon? Is there an apparent contradiction here? Actually, do you know what? I want to try this, right? Let's do this poll thing. Let's create a new poll, right? Apparent contradiction. Let's see. Yes, no. And let's make this. Oh, okay. The minimum time is 1 minute. Okay. So right, you should see the poll marker there. So Brother Abu Muhammad says there is no apparent contradiction here. Okay. Actually, let's see. Is there any votes yet? Have you guys? Can you guys see a voting thing at the top of the chat? It's the first time I'm trying this. I just want to see if it works. One is okay. Well, here's the thing, Abu Muhammad, right? So we're trying to learn from the lessons already done. Okay, so Ubi 1,000, you're probably going to say no as well. Okay, but here's my question to you. One says, indeed, you guide, and the other one says, you do not guide. That looks like a contradiction to me. Abu Muhammad, you're saying one refers to tawfiq and the other refers to the guiding road. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that there. Can you show me where it says that? Where does it say that exactly? And guidance is only from Allah, but conveying the messages are like. Okay, but I'm asking. Okay, so here's a very specific question: is there an apparent contradiction here? Because it says you guide to a straight path, and the other one says you do not guide to a straight path. There needs to be some kind of, because Muslims say there's no contradictions in the Quran, but that looks like a contradiction to me, so that's why I'm asking you. All right, that poll. Let's see what happened with that poll. No one. Okay, nothing happened on that point. Okay, khalas, we'll ignore that. Okay. The second one is referring to the Prophet's uncle, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It doesn't say that there. Where does it say that? There's context in the, but there's no hadith here. It's literally just, and indeed, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you guide to a straight path, and indeed, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you do not guide whom you like, but Allah guides whom He wills. There's no hadith. What's a hadith? We've come with this idea that no contradictions in Islam in Islam in the Quran. It literally says you guide, you do not guide. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. For the sake of time, here's the answer. Okay. And be sitting down for this answer. The answer is yes, there is an apparent contradiction here. Okay? Yes. Indeed, O Muhammad sallallahu you guide to a straight path, and indeed, O Muhammad sallallahu you do not guide whom you like, but Allah guides whom He wills. There is an apparent contradiction here. Okay? Now, listen to what I'm saying very, very carefully. It's an apparent contradiction. So remember the exercises we did beforehand. So obviously, we're doubling down on our lessons here. Listening and understanding. Turn off the internal clock, turn off the internal radio, turn off the fact that you have all of this extra information, and listen to the what's being said to you. I am not talking about the Arabic. I am not talking about the Quran. I am not talking about the what the background of the ayah is. I'm not talking about this relation to the hadith. I'm not talking about the explanation. I'm talking about literally you've given this Quran, or not the Quran rather, you've given a translation of the Quran. You've given the translation, which is a person or a body's perspective. Not perspective rather, but their attempt to translate the words of our Creator into something else, into a different language. Okay, it's literally a translation. It's not the Quran, it's the translation of the Quran. But they're reading this in the English without any context, and they read these two things, or they find it on a website, how to attack Islam, or faults and contradictions in Islam, whatever. They find these two things and they say, oh, there looks like there's a contradiction here. And here's the problem. When they come to you and they say, okay, it looks like there's a contradiction here, there's an apparent contradiction here, when you turn around and you say, no, there's not, because, there can't be a contradiction in Islam, which is true. Okay, I'm not saying that there are contradictions. It's true, there aren't. But I'm talking about explaining it. When you just turn around and say, no, there's not, like flat denial, because that's what we've been indoctrinated to believe, and there is basis, but, what I'm trying to get you to think about is look from his perspective. He's just reading the English there, and there looks like a contradiction there. And for you to deny that basically will reinforce the perspective in their mind that you're actually not fair and balanced and rational at all. You're just going to make up your own conclusion regardless of what the evidence in front of you says. Does that make sense? Okay, this is a very, very important point to understand, that from their perspective, from someone who doesn't understand, who's only reading a translation, it looks like there's there is a contradiction here. And your response is, yeah, I can see why you would think that. Yeah, it does. In the English translation, if you just take those two statements on their own, devoid of context, outside of context, forget the fact that they're in two completely different places in the Quran, they're talking about two different events. If you take those two statements out of context and put them next to each other, yes, there does look like there's a contradiction there. But that's not the way you read anything. Okay, that's not the way you read and you understand anything. You have to understand the background knowledge. So first and foremost, firstly, bear in mind, we take the Quran, the words of Allah, the words of our Creator, as the Arabic. Okay, so this English is just basically a reflection of that, and not a whole. Actually, probably a reflection is a bad word, but not a wholly accurate reflection. It's not like a reflection of a mirror. It's more like a reflection in the sea of water, where you kind of get the gist, but it's not the same as seeing the original, right? And secondly, the revelation refers to specific context. It refers to specific things, and you need to understand it deeper by understanding the reason for that revelation, what the context is. And this is where you can now explain what the hadith are, what one means, that yes, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you guide to a straight path, means that yes, you are the one that you call people to the truth. You know, you're not someone who's calling people to somewhere else. You're calling people to the truth. You're calling people to Islam. And the other one being again, as Abu Muhammad mentioned, that yeah, it refers to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle, that you don't get to choose who you guide. Basically, you can't enforce guidance upon someone. That at the end of the day, it's fundamentally it's down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether that person chooses to accept Islam or not. Okay, so they're two completely different contrary things that when you take them out of context and put them together, it does look like a contradiction. But what I wanted first and foremost from you guys is to recognize that, first of all, you can recognize that you're seeing the other person's perspective. Okay, because these are what all the slides that we've been building up to is basically trying to show. Have a look at the other person's perspective, because as soon as you've negated that person's perspective and saying no, you basically can't, you've seen a contradiction, there's no contradiction there, right? You've just negated that person's entire engagement with this book now. That person can't relate to you. You've not built some kind of a relationship there. At least first and foremost, acknowledge that what they're seeing, acknowledge that, by saying that, yeah, there's an apparent contradiction there, you're not confirming that there's a contradiction in the Quran. Those are two completely different statements. So you need to be more nuanced. All you're confirming is, yeah, I can see why when you do this and do this and do this, it looks like there's a contradiction there. But then you show how that's not the correct methodology anyway. You don't take statements far apart and put them together as though they're related to one another, completely devoid of their contexts. Make sense? First and foremost, right? Secondly, now that we've got that out of the way, so again, everything matters. You've got to be paying attention to the person that you're talking to and listening. Because I know what happens, and this is why I made the slide and the question in that way specifically. I know what happens as soon as in the Muslim's mindset, as soon as someone says, "Oh, contradiction, Islam, Quran," all of a sudden defensive mode. Which is fine, because we've got a basis, but have your basis for doing that, but understand what the person's actually trying to say first and foremost, rather than trying to, you see, this is the problem, that rather than just defaulting to and just say, no contradictions, take a step back, right? What exactly are you trying to say? And let's clarify your understanding. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, the other aspect now, to convey and to convince. So one refers to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That you can spread the message of Islam and you can take the message of Islam to the ears. Okay, whether it enters the heart is down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, at the end of the day, and again, there's no contradiction there either. Okay, now what does this also mean for us now as Muslims to convey and convince? It basically makes our job a lot easier. That our job, our role, our objective, because it was not the role and the objective of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is not for people to believe in Islam in their hearts. Okay, is just to convey the message, whether they believe it or not. Now, obviously, we have to convey the message as best as we can, but whether they believe the message or not is not down to us. It's not up to us. So we don't have to, worry ourselves of, oh, this person is probably likely not to accept or whatever have you. That's not your position to make that judgment call on what someone will believe and not believe. Your only objective is, or will they believe it me or whatever have you. Your only objective is just to convey the message. That's it. Convey the message, do the best that you can. Okay? As for anything else, that is down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because it's down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not going to be held to account for it. You're not going to be held to account, why did Fulan not accept Islam? You are only going to be held to account, well, did you tell Fulan about the message of Islam, and did you tell Fulan properly in the correct way, in the correct manner? Okay, and again, also, just I can't remember if I mentioned this, but background knowledge. You guys are answering the contradiction because of background knowledge. You have the hadith, whatever have you. Your prospect doesn't have, the person you're talking to doesn't have that background knowledge. So again, bear in mind, because they don't have that background knowledge, don't belittle them or belittle their understanding or their conclusion based on it. Okay, you have to recognize other people's perspectives, recognize where they're coming from, because if you can't do that, then the effectiveness of your dawah is again, it's going to be stunted. Okay. Right. Okay. So here's right. Let me don't get emotional and defensive instead of immediate reacting and claim of contradiction. Yeah, understand the worldview. Yeah, I think we covered up all of that. Do you know what? I actually had an exercise for this, but I forgot about this, so I actually didn't prepare it, and I don't know where my prop is. Actually, I had a prop for this slide as well, which I actually forgot about, and I don't know where it is now. So khalas, we'll have to forget that one. Okay, again, don't treat people like biological robots. I mean, this slide is fairly self-explanatory. That at the end of the day, you can't expect that you're going to, people are robots. They're going to assimilate and understand everything that they've ever come across. That they're going to be driven. That you say one thing, they're going to react in a particular way, whatever have you. Like, people are unpredictable. People are complex. They're deep. They've got a lot of different issues going on. And where I put deceptive and diversionary there is not in a negative sense, but more in the sense of that, they may say something to you that why they have an objection for Islam, but in reality it might be something else. For example, they may say to you that they don't accept some of the arguments that you've made for Islam, whereas in reality they've accepted everything. They've accepted the truth, but they're just struggling how to reconcile it, how to change their life, and just trying to get over that hurdle. Whereas obviously a robot, machines, whatever the truth is, they just follow that. People are not biological robots. People are people, and it would do everybody well to remember that. Okay, and again, here's a hint for you guys. Okay, these slides are in a particular order for a particular reason, because the principles being built up and demonstrated in one, we're progressing the others. By acknowledging the worldview, it doesn't mean you accept it as correct. No, you're not acknowledging. Yeah. Okay, look. By acknowledging someone's personal subjective perspective, you're not saying that perspective is correct. Okay, you have subject. So let's explain subjectivity versus objectivity. Subjectivity is something that's specific to yourself, that you see, your perspective about something. Something objective is the absolute reality. So for example, a burger on a plate. Okay, objectively it's a burger on a plate, or if you want to get specific, it's a bit of meat with some bread, bun, or whatever have you. It's a burger on a plate, right? Nobody is going to come along and say that's not a burger. Okay, it may not be a good burger, but it's a burger, right? As for whether that burger is a good burger or tastes nice or whatever have you, that's down to the individual. That's subjectivity. Okay, now all we're saying is, you might have that burger and you might think, that's not very good. Somebody else might have that burger and think, wow, this is amazing. Okay, by acknowledging, all I'm saying for you to do is to acknowledge that they think it's amazing. So yeah, okay, I can see why you think that. Okay, I can see, Fulan, why you like this burger. Fulan, you like this burger, because you have just come from a country that has been, subjected to famine and whatever have you, and you've been literally living off, literally canned food for the last 20 years. And this is a fresh basic burger, it's the first actual real meat that you've had and your body is craving it, whatever have you. So I can understand, Fulan, why you eating this burger and you think it's amazing. As for me, I eat burgers every single day. I have them, with relish and lettuce and tomato and whatever have you, big gourmet burgers, tower burgers with cheese and whatever have you. And this basic cheeseburger doesn't really do it for me. It's no good. Okay? All I'm saying is for you to accept that person's perspective, that they think it's a good burger, just acknowledge it. That, yeah, I understand and I can see why you think that. You don't have to agree it's a good burger. You can have your own perspective. But all you're doing is acknowledging, right, I can see why you think that, but now let's show you. So Fulan, you've had this basic burger and you think that's a good burger? Okay, let me take you to my favorite burger place and I'll show you a good burger. That you don't have to make it correct. You just have to acknowledge how and where they got to that position. Does that make sense? It's a very important point that just because you say, yeah, okay, fine, I can see why it looks like there's a contradiction there. You're not confirming there's a contradiction there. It looks like there's a contradiction there. And even if there is, even if something makes no sense in the English translation, khalas, that's the English translation. That's not the words of the Arabic. The Arabic could be a lot more deeper than that. There could be something there that hasn't really been considered or whatever have you. Okay, you're only confirming and acknowledging the perspective of that person at that particular moment in time. Okay, right. So now let's think about this one. Marriage proposal. Okay, so consider the following proposal, that for the brothers, particularly the brothers that haven't been married before, whether they would consider marrying a sister who was older than them, by a few years, that this sister had been previously married multiple times, that the sister had children, not a child, children, plural, but in terms of her qualities and characteristics, whatever have you, her credentials, she is top of the top. We'll say that, yeah, she is, she's an amazing wife, an amazing mother, an amazing Muslimah. She will be amazing for you, right? And again, for the sisters, whether they consider, marrying an amazing brother. However, this brother he's already married and has already got a couple of wives at least already. But again, he's an amazing person. Now, I can tell you, right? Well, first of all, what do you guys think? Do you think these proposals are gonna... Wait, did the stream just pause? The stream just... They did. 1 second. Hold on. Let me just do this. Right, 1 second. I think wife has just come from taking the kids out and her uploads are killing the bandwidth, which I think had a negative effect on the stream. Right, okay. Oh, okay. Must have been just mine. Right, okay. What was I saying? Right, yeah. So I can tell you, Jazakallah khair. So I can tell you from experience, which we won't go into how I know, that the likelihood of these proposals becoming fruitful is very, very, very slim. Particularly, well, like I said, from the brothers, they don't care how good a Muslimah is, how good the sister is, and whatever have you. As soon as they find out, okay, she's older, oh, she's been married, oh, she's got kids, she's got baggage, no chance, not going to happen, right? Maybe as a second, third, fourth wife, maybe might consider it, but no, we don't want someone else's leftovers. And again, the sister's perspective is, no, don't want to share, don't want to have this conflict or whatever have you. But the reality is, right, and I've done this experiment many, many times before I put the slide in, that if you were to ask the brothers, particularly the knowledgeable ones, the ones that think that they've studied, whatever have you, describe someone who would be the perfect wife. More often than not, and I mean by a huge margin, if you were to ask them like the perfect wife, they would say Khadija radiallahu anha, that they would want someone like her. Really, bro? Really? Because here's the thing, when Khadija was wed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she was a few years older than him. she was at that point already previously married twice, and she already had children at that point. Rasulullah ﷺ accepted that marriage proposal, but if that sister had come to you in reality, you would have said no. You would have said no, because all you cared about was somebody else's leftovers. And again, for the sisters, if we said to the sisters, listen, if you had someone who was, part of the Battle of Badr, for example, and all the people of the Battle of Badr, they're after the prophets and the messengers and the Blessed Ten, the people of the Battle of Badr at the top, right? Would you have accepted someone from there? Say yes. Why? Because they know by being married to such a person, they'll also achieve, one of the highest ranks in Jannah. But if you actually had someone who came forth to you with the same set of characteristics who could achieve that, they would actually turn out no, because he's already previously married. And every single Badri had multiple wives. That's my point. So here's an important point to think about, right? And you might think, okay, what has this got to do with the Dawah course? There's absolutely nothing wrong. I don't want to say nothing wrong. Okay, it's permitted to if we were looking for a marriage to look for someone who hasn't been married before, who doesn't have children. It's permitted for the sisters, to look for someone who hasn't got co-wives or whatever have you. It's permitted. Is it the best course of action? Arguably not. Is it something that is promoted, encouraged? Arguably not. But it is permissible, right? And it's a small thing that really what our deen teaches us is to look at the person's deen. Okay, if they're strong in their religion, that's the person that we should be selecting. Wait, here's the point, right? There we go. That's that, right? But here's the point. The way that we look at people accepting Islam, right? Have a look at this person who we've just been trying to give dawah to, that they have been born and raised in a society that is predominantly of another culture, another religion. They have been practicing that. Let's just take Christianity as an example in the West. It's the predominant religion. They are used to their Sunday. I mean, today is what? Easter Sunday, Sunday dinners. They're used to their celebrations, their rituals, their lifestyle, all of which is centered around, their theological perspective. Their family are Christians, their friends are mostly Christians, the society around them is mostly Christians, whatever have you. And now you've just come along and flipped that entire thing all the way upside down, where now they have to sit and think that to accept what it is that you're trying to tell them, or what it is that you want them to accept, their entire worldview has to be 180. That now what they believe, that A'udhu Billah, Jesus is God, yada yada yada, is now completely false. They have to believe that this is now actually a false belief, that they have to now follow something that is contradictory to what their family and their friends believe. They have to follow something that their family and friends might believe is a hostile position, whatever have you. It's a huge leap. Okay, and what I'm trying to get you to recognize is that huge leap, what we're expecting people who've been given the message of Islam to take. And what I'm trying to do is make you reflect on how we as Muslims won't even take the small leaps, right? Now, a small leap here is, I'm looking for a sister to get married to. Oh, but this one, she's been married before. She's been married before, and divorce happens. It's fine, it's permissible, it's in the Quran, it's halal, there's no problem. She's got children from those marriages, no problem. It's permitted for you to marry her. It's recommended in some cases, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Her deen is good. She's a good sister for you. The only problem, your only barrier was like this little mental thing in your head. Oh no, I don't like it. Oh no, I don't want it, right? Whereas actually it was actually good for you, and you actually let go of the khair just because of your own personal perspective. And again, from the other side with the sister, that we won't even make those small jumps for that little bit of extra khair, yet we expect on the other side other people to completely turn their life upside down and around on a moment at the dawah table just because we've just proven Islam to you. It doesn't work like that. And if you think that it works like that, then you're severely misguided in thinking that this person is some kind of a biological robot instead of a person. You've got to treat people like people. Does that make sense? that you've got to have that emotional connection, that there's a lot of things that could be going on with that person that might be governing why that individual is not, ready to accept right there and then. Just be open-minded. They might tell you, they might even say to you that they don't. Actually, Sheikh Kamal al-Makki actually even mentioned a story where he was giving dawah to an individual who was basically arguing with him for a long time, basically saying, I don't believe it, I don't believe it, I don't believe it, whatever have you. In the end, it actually turned out, when that person had actually accepted Islam, in the end, it turned out that the person was actually convinced right from the very beginning. Okay, so he just kept saying that he doesn't believe it just to delay uh, or to slow down the process of having to switch his lifestyle. So his problem was basically being able to switch his lifestyle, and he didn't want to be bombarded with, oh, you have to do this right here, right now, blah 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 blah. Rather, he just basically said, no, I don't believe it. Which, I mean, we might hear that and say, we don't believe it, whatever have you, but be aware that there's other possibilities. Be aware that whatever picture we're being presented, even if it's from the source, might not actually be the reality. The reality in this case was that person was convinced. He just needed help. Whereas, he presented the picture of, no, he just doesn't believe it. Again, it's different depending on your mindset. If you were a softer individual, he might have just said, okay, listen, I believe it, but I'm not ready right now, or I need to be eased into it. Here's some stories that unfortunately you hear a lot of. People accept Islam. You're not praying it 5 times a day straight away. Oh my God, you're a kafir. You've left the fold of Islam. You're going straight to hell. Nah, bro. First and foremost, yes, fine. Someone's accept Islam. You go into the house, you smash all their alcohol or whatever have you. Okay, listen. First and foremost, right? Understand, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah is far greater than everything. It's the key to Jannah. Without that, you don't get to Jannah. It is far, far, far better to be a sinful Muslim who believes in Allah, someone who believes in Allah and the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's far better to believe in that and be sinful than to not believe in it altogether. Like, understand, pick your battles. Like, the first step is get them to believe first and foremost. Fine, if they haven't started praying, there's tons of Muslims around the world that don't pray or whatever have you, or there's plenty that drink. We're not making it halal. Now, here's the point, be nuanced. We're not making it halal. We're not saying it's permissible. We're not saying you're going to be rewarded for this, whatever have you. What we are saying, or what the perspective we're taking is, look, it's a journey. You're going to go down. Even the Sahaba, even the companions, right? These people that were living at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were witnessing miracles. They were around his company. They were the most blessed of people. And even they need time to be weaned off of alcohol, okay? You can't expect instant results. You need to give people time. You mention them that, yeah, look, it is a sin. Don't, nag them all the time, whatever have you, and drive them out of Islam. But ease into them slowly. Let them take 10 years, 20 years, whatever have you. The point is that they're on the path. They're on the journey. Actually, there's I might actually have to put this, make a note of this. I want to put this. Actually, no, I'll come back to, wait, hold on. Let me add a note for myself here. The point is, right, let me go into the hadith that's just come to my mind. The hadith of the person who killed 99. So there was an individual, he had killed 99 people and he wanted salvation and blah 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 blah. So he went to a person, he went to a da'i actually, and this da'i gave him the wrong advice. Okay, I can't remember exactly what the word is in the hadith, but there was a particular lecture I heard on this which explained that he went to someone who seemed like they have knowledge, but he didn't. And that person told him, no, you're basically out of it, right? No forgiveness for you. So he killed that person and made it 100, okay? He then went to a person of knowledge, okay? He went to a person of knowledge. And the person of knowledge basically recognized that, okay, look, at the end of the day, forgiveness is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You've killed 100 people, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can still forgive you, but you need to be out of this situation. You need to change your lifestyle. You need to go to a different city, okay? And on the way to that city, I mean, this is a very famous hadith. I'm sure we all know it, right? But on the way to that city, he died. He passed away. Okay, so now's the question. Then the angels came, the angels from paradise and the hellfire came, and they each were arguing, no, he's going to be forgiven, and the other one said, well, no, he wasn't forgiven, and this became the issue, right? Whereas, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the ruling basically to forgive him because he was close to the city. Anyway, the point of the one of the many lessons that you can extract from the story is that this individual didn't actually ask for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They hadn't committed tawbah. Okay, they hadn't repented. They were on the road to do so. They were on the path. They had already taken the steps, and they were going to another city, and they were going to start putting things in practice, and they passed away before they could get there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still forgave them on that basis. So again, with someone who is entering and looking into Islam or whatever have you, again, it's not for us to instill, all of these fatwa on them straight away on day one. Ease them into it. We're not making things halal for them, right? I also heard there used to be this thing going back in the days, salah, it's halal for you to not pray salah for 40 days. Complete fabric. I have no idea where this comes from. We're not making this halal for them. It's not a permitted thing. But in terms of the choice of the two, I would rather you stay in Islam and pray once a day than to not be a Muslim and pray 0 times a day, or pray even once a week, or pray even once a month. I would rather you be a Muslim, say La ilaha illallah, and pray once a year, pray twice a year on Eid, whatever have you, and no other times, than to not do it at all. Does that make sense? And you build up slowly, because once you build up slowly and build up practices, they can incorporate it in their lifestyle, and then they will stay into it. Now, you remember what I was saying to you guys yesterday about actual practicing Muslims, that not a single one of them came from a Dawah stall, because this is what you kind of expect as a result of a Dawah stall, that all of the people who are actually practicing Muslims were eased into it, were weaned into it slowly, because they had the support of someone who they had regular contact with. This is Dawah. You can't just, Dawah is not about just bing bang, spoke to a person, khalas, that's it. You can do that in some context online or whatever have you, and yes, go ahead and do that. But if you want to get the real results, the real rewards, you need, it takes a lot of time and effort. Okay. Islam requires some tailor that can challenge. Yeah, it is. Okay. So here's a short video on empathy that I think is beneficial to watch. So I really want you guys to pay attention to this, where empathy is the act of feeling with someone, whereas sympathy is where you can just basically play lip service. So just have a look at this quick video.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space where someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, huh? No. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I had it, yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, that's the important point. It's the connection. It's all to do with connecting with people. You've got to have that connection. Like I said, 90% of the effectiveness of your dawah is your relationship, your connection with people. If you don't have that, you're going to be very limited in how successful it's going to be for you. And again, just have a look at the seerah. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was always about connecting with people, understanding, getting to know everyone, getting to know. Oh, actually, here's a good example. Actually, this just shows you the connection that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had with people. It was, subhanallah, I forgot the Sahabi's name. Who's the one who led the conquest of Egypt? His name was on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, so this Sahabi was he came to Rasulullah, and because of the way that Rasulullah used to treat him, he actually thought that he was the most beloved. So he asked Rasul, and he wanted to basically, show off this supposition that he had. Again, this is his own drama. So he asked Rasulullah, who is the most beloved to you? At which point Rasulullah said, Aisha, his wife. Amr bin As, yes, Jazakallah khair. Yes, Amr bin As was one who was asking this question. Who's the most beloved to you? And he said Aisha. And he said, no. Obviously, can't compete with the wife. From among the men, to which Rasulullah said, her father. Meaning Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Is a separate lesson as well to the mention of her father. But then he said, okay, but then okay, fine, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, childhood friend, you've known him for a long time, the first early person, father-in-law, yada yada, can't compete with him. But who again? And then Omar, and then who again? So he went through, started asking again and again, and started going through the names. At which point he then realized at some point that okay, his name wasn't going to be coming up soon. So let's just stop digging, so to speak, right? The point there is the situation that led him to ask the question in the first place was the fact that Rasulullah's relationship with him was such that he actually thought that he was the most beloved. Okay, and again, this is the example that we're being taught, that we've got to recognize and understand and connect with the people to whom we're engaging with, if we want to call them basically to the better path. And we're only going to do that obviously if we sincerely believe in them. Be easy. I've also got a note here as well. So another example, Rasulullah SAW advised Mu'adh. Wait, hold on, let me add another. Right, let me add a note for myself. I like to add these notes so I can make the slides better for next time. Rasulullah advised Mu'adh, may Allah be pleased with him, to recite the short surahs for Isha. So he used to have a practice when he would lead Isha for his people, that he would recite long surahs. And for some people, the recitation and the salah is a comfort for them, so they can manage a long time. So and he was one of these individuals. He used to like to prolong the salah. It was a comfort for him. It's something good to him. And at the end of the day, it's Isha salah, right? It's pitch black in Medina. It's complete darkness. There's nothing to do. So why not recite? Qiyam is a normal thing, right? At which point, because of a complaint, Rasulullah advised him, no, recite the short ayah, because don't make it stressful, difficult on people. There's people following you in the salah and they can't keep up. They may have to wake up early or whatever have you. Be mindful of the congregation that you live in. Just because you're enjoying it and you can do it, be mindful of those who are behind you and make it easy for them. Don't make it a source of fitna. Don't make it a source of difficulty for them. So again, these are the lessons that we need to be mindful of. Okay, so final slide. Okay, Ahmed and Bilal are farmers who are sowing seeds in their field. Ahmed throws handfuls of seeds randomly and leaves nature to do the rest. Bilal takes the time to painstakingly plant each seed correctly in the ground. And which of the two is going to gain the greatest yield come year end? What do you guys think? Okay, which of the two is going to get the most, the best yield? And not only just the answer, why? Take that off. Right, Bilal's going to gain the best yield, but why? And now you're going to say, because he painstakingly planted every seed correctly. Right? But then the question is still going to be, why? What difference does that make? Because it's, well, yeah. See, I predicted what you were going to say. The question is, why? What difference does it make? Due to the effort? Does the seed know about the effort? The seed doesn't know about the effort. The seed doesn't know. The seed doesn't care. So why? See, I like this teaching style where I have to get you guys to think about it a little bit. Just go a little bit deeper. So think about it. Why would Ahmed's fail? What's going to be the failure on his part? Think about it. Start putting things into motion. Of course, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for results. But yeah, you can just say that about everything. Oh, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if I get up and go out and give dawah today. A lot of Muslims, we just abuse this. Oh, inshallah, I'll do something today. And, if you didn't do it, oh, Allah didn't will. No, no, no. It doesn't work like that. No planning, no effort. What difference does it make? The seed doesn't know. The seed doesn't care. The seed has no knowledge and consciousness of how much effort you imparted to do this. Okay, let me explain. First and foremost, let's have a look at the pitfalls of Ahmed's efforts. It's because just by arbitrarily chucking the seeds on the surface of the soil, right? First of all, you're going to have the wind that can blow the seeds away. Okay, the wind is just going to basically dissipate them. You're going to have rain that can wash the seeds away. You're going to have birds that might come and eat them, other small animals. Basically, you have a lot of different factors that's going to come along and basically prevent the seeds from even being present, let alone growing. And then secondly, with regards to the seeds actually growing, well, seeds grow in a conducive environment for them to grow. And the conducive environment for them is, for the most part, depending on different types of seed. I think grass you can just do on top or whatever have you. But the conducive environment is to bury the seeds, is to put the seeds slightly below the surface. And that requires effort to raise the surface and plant the seed below. If you don't put the seed in a conducive environment for it to grow, it's not going to grow because it doesn't have access to the nutrients, the resources that it needs. That's basically the problem. That it's not the time and the effort. I mean, that's obviously implied, but the issue is he didn't put it in a situation where it's going to, or conducive for it to grow. He didn't basically give it the resources that he needs, that the seeds need. And this is the difference between, if you take the time to do something correctly, you'll get a far better result than if you do things haphazardly. Now, how does this work from a dawah perspective? What do I mean here? Well, sometimes as du'at, particularly if we've just read a book or something like that on dawah techniques and arguments, we watched a debate or whatever have you, it's very easy for us to fall into the trap of, someone says, oh, well, why do you believe in Islam? They say, oh, well, I believe in Islam because we've got so many different proofs of God. There's the teleological argument, there's cosmological argument, there's the kalam argument. So obviously God must exist because that's the only explanation for everything. And then obviously with the Quran, then you've got the preservation of the Quran, you've got the linguistic miracle of the Quran. And don't forget also the Quran is historically accurate as well, as was proven by various historical documents, whereas other books aren't. The Quran also made predictions that we also know that came true. And also, let me tell you about the messenger, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that he used to do this and he used to do that, blah, 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 blah. And you just throw so much stuff at the person. At the end of that conversation, right, how much do you think that person has actually retained? And I guarantee you it's pretty much next to nothing. You've taken that scattergun approach and you've just basically chucked a whole bunch of seeds at them, but they all just stayed on the surface and it just went in one ear, out another ear. Even if they tried to understand it, just that short-term burst of a whole lot of information, they're not going to remember it. You try it just doesn't work. There's no teaching methodology where that works, where you can just dump a whole lot of information on someone and they just instantly remember it. And again, for you to think that a person is going to remember that is you thinking of that person as a biological robot instead of a person. It's not going to happen. That the way that you need to do it is pick something, pick a seed, pick a particular point, and then explain that point properly, deeply, and explain it to the point where the person gets it. Because you only need one seed for there to be success. I mean, look at the biggest tree in the world, right? Which is a California redwood tree. That's the biggest tree in the world, right? It's so big that they build roads through it. Like, they won't fell the tree to build a road. They'll actually cut like the whole. It's big enough that you can drive, 2 lanes, multiple lanes through the tree, and it's still standing on either side. It's that stupidly big. How many seeds does it grow from? Just one. You only need one seed. Explained very well. Let it take root. Let it grow. And inshallah, that's going to be the source of that can be a source of guidance in and of itself. And you've just got to pick the right seed. Okay, so I think you got to pick the right seed. So, for example, here in the UK, okay, we're not going to plant palm trees because we just don't have the weather for it. We don't have the weather for it. It's not going to grow. And likewise, the Middle East, they're not going to be planting, elm trees and conifers and things like that, the trees that we have here, because they don't have the weather for it, right? If you take the wrong seed and put it in the wrong soil, it's not going to grow. You've got to basically pick the right seed, the right topic of discussion based on who you're talking to, which means you need to get to know who you're talking to in order to be able to explain that point in the first place. Okay, and also, using the analogy of a tree, they take a long time to grow. Don't expect instant results again. Okay, just because someone's sitting under the shade of a tree right now, don't assume that that's something that you planted. That could have happened a long time ago. What do I mean? Like, it was very common as well as at one point, Dawah used to say, I've got X amount of shahadas, I got 50 shahadas, I got 100 shahadas. That's ridiculous. Like, I mean, first and foremost, don't shahada count. Just because someone took shahada with you doesn't mean that was necessarily because of you. Maybe they were looking into Islam, for years before they met you. Maybe you just happened to be there at you just happened to be there at the right place at the right time. But the actual seed was planted, by somebody else. Just because you happen to be sitting under the shade of a tree doesn't mean you planted the tree. The tree was, could have been planted by other people. Okay. So just bear that in mind, that you can't expect instant results. Now, how do you plant a seed? The best way to plant a seed is to get the person you're talking to swallow the seed themselves, rather than you forcing something down their throat. Rather, you get them to swallow it. So the way that I like to do this is by getting them to think and realize and admit the truth themselves. So instead, very simple example, you could say to them that, look, there has to be a God, there has to be a creator because of X, Y, and Z, and blah, 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 and you start drilling things into them. Now you're telling them things, okay? This is not planting a seed. You're driving them, you're projecting onto them, and you're forcing them to basically accept your worldview, which is also the methodology, if you reflect back on it, very akin to a debate, which will subconsciously, whether they realize it or not, put the other person in a debate mode where now it doesn't matter whether you're saying it's true or not, but they may feel inclined, because again, this is shaitan's waswasa, they may just feel inclined to just rebut you just for the sake of rebutting you, just because they want to prove you wrong and be right, because the ego is taking over. So the way to get around that is by asking them. So say, well, okay, fine. Where do you think reality came from? What are the possible options? Which, could this have happened? Could that have happened? And let them think about it, and let this this curiosity start growing in their mind, where they've got a predicament, they've got a hole in their worldview, something that they can't explain. By the way, atheists cannot explain where reality came from, whatever have you. They start going into really weird contradictions. Okay, they come up with this thing, oh, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. Oh, science will one day tell us, but we don't know. They just live in perpetual denial, basically, right? Which is quite fun to play around with. But my point being that you can, with some practice, get them to be in a state where they start thinking about things themselves and they start swallowing the seed themselves, and let it grow in their mind. Because, like I said, and from one of the other slides, people want to be right, and people want to have their worldview cohesive and make sense. So if they are naturally, if they are inclined to the truth, they will think about it and investigate and research more, because they want reconciliation for all of these things. And Islam, and our point is, Islam can provide that reconciliation for you. The Islamic perspective can make sense of everything, which other ideologies and methodologies can't. And that's what we're basically offering to people, and therefore obviously Islam must be the truth. Okay. But the point that I want you to get at is, look, the idea is to just plant the seed in their head. Okay, let it grow. Let it just plant. Go focus on a specific idea rather than trying to beat them with some kind of a stick on an idea. Pick the right seed. If one thing doesn't work, then try something else. But you've got to get to know the person in order to understand, what's gonna work in this regard. Okay. So that concludes the end of this whole session. Are there any questions with regards to that at all, or not? I think, what are we doing time-wise? Okay, yeah, good, 10 to 5. No? Okay, cool. Any questions with regards to that, or with regards to anything that we've discussed thus far, or not? What type of questions can you ask to plant the seed? Any type of questions. Any type of questions. The point is, the slides will be available. So the slides will be, it's either Abu Muhammad, can you post a link to, so you've got a link, should be on the about page, to my Discord or to the YouTube channel and to my Facebook. So when I push up this video will be available on YouTube, so I'll have a link to the slides there as well. So you can watch this video again. You'll also have a link to the slides there, inshallah, and I'll post that obviously on my Facebook. Abu Muhammad might or might not be able to post the link. I don't know. Or if you send it to me on WhatsApp, then I can post it. But yeah, it'll be available, inshallah. So what type of questions can you ask to plant the seed? Anything. Just literally the act of asking a question is planting the seed. Depends on what the point is that you're trying to get to. Like, even something, if you want to just ask generally, like, okay, can you explain the origin of the Quran? And then, when they give an answer, then you just explain, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Just elaborate a little further. You basically draw through a series of questioning the person to basically come to the conclusion of the truth themselves. But so not next week. So next week we're going to be discussing. Next week is going to be epistemology, inshallah, on both days, Saturday and Sunday, and then after that, then we're going to go through, the divine reality argument for God, and then the Quran and messengership, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's where particular examples are going to be. And why? Wait, did that cancel my thing? That did cancel my thing. Okay. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Did that? Oh well, never mind. We were ending anyway, so it's a it's a good time for that interruption to turn up. So yeah, we'll go through examples of questions and things that you can ask in that regard at that point. Julio, any other questions, or should we call it a day there? I guess if there's no more questions, then we can call it a day. Yeah, okay. I think no more questions. Where can you find the times and dates for these sessions? So, every weekend throughout April, starting at 3 p.m. So it's 5 p.m. now. So whatever the time is in your time zone, take 2 hours away on Saturdays and Sundays. Also on the About page, if you go to the schedule, you should see the schedule, and you can scroll forward and you'll see the schedules, these sessions there, and you can have a reminder there. You can join the Facebook, my Facebook page, so I'll have it there on my Facebook page. The link is on my About page here on Twitch. I'm still waiting for Abu Muhammad to send me the link for their group, and I can post that in. Sugarcoating the Deen versus showing empathy. What do you mean? I wouldn't sugarcoat the Deen. I mean, you can explain it as it is, but the way that but there's also multiple ways that you can explain something. And showing empathy. Well, okay, fine. Oh, sugarcoat. No, empathy is a different thing. Empathy is like you want to make a connection with that person. You want to understand what it is that they're feeling, that they're going through. You know, they may be going through difficulties. Because look, you know, it's time for zakat. Well, a lot of people do their zakat in Ramadan. So here's an example. It's permissible to give zakat to someone to encourage them to accept Islam. You know, some people may have financial difficulties or whatever have you. You know, Christian missionaries do this a lot. They give people financial support, and people are happy to accept the religion on the basis of that. It's permissible. You know, what you're trying to do, what your objective is to try and make things easy for people. Okay, however that may be, without without compromising the integrity of the deen. Okay, but at the end, it's a balancing act. You've got to look at what the ultimate objective is. Makes sense? Okay, I think let's call it there. Jazakallahu khairan. We'll see you guys next week on Saturday at this time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. And also, guys, please do share like the YouTube video and the link for this as well, so other people can join in as well. جزاكم خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.